You're gonna tell us when it's time to go home, aren't you?
I think we have people for that.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are we?
Here.
Are you awake? Are you warm? Yes, good. That's a good sign. Well, we are going to have our WellTalk today with Miss Ann Hoffman. She is one of our yoga instructors that we have here at Guilford and at West on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So if you have never explored her classes, I highly encourage you to do so. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ann.
Hi, everybody. Am I on?
Closer to your mouth.
Closer to my mouth. I can hear myself now. Most of you know I'm Ann Hoffman, and Kayla suggested I start with a little bit of background about what grew me into this. So I grew up in Denmark. Have you heard about it?
Oh, yeah.
Little tension right now in a small village on the west coast of Denmark. Hello, hello. Come on in. And about 500 people. A church, a school, a couple stores. It's a small community. And there was nothing in my early days that suggested I was going to be teaching yoga in Greensboro with so many delightful people. You never know where the road is going to take you. I thought, well, I like logic, so I'm going to become an accountant. I was an awful accountant, but I put in my time and effort. I was so bored with it, I said, where can I go? The U.S. looks like a nice place. So I did, as an au pair. Met my husband. He followed me home, we got married. Stayed there for a couple of years, because I said, if you want to marry me, you have to live in my country, or you won't know a thing about what it's like being Danish. After 2 years, he said, I have lived in your country. I'm like, okay. So here we are. Came back to the States, decided that maybe accounting wasn't my passion. So studied psychology, and that was really my gateway drug into yoga. Because I graduated with my psychology degree almost 30 years ago. I had already started practicing yoga. And when I looked at graduate programs in psychology, it was from the neck up. But there was very little about how the body was involved with the head or the head with the body. So I was missing that link. And then I started deepening my yoga practice. And in the meantime, I also worked importing Danish furniture, I sold real estate, always been a very curious person. But yoga was what I kept coming back to. We moved around a lot, but in 2005, we moved back to Greensboro for the third time. I said, if we leave again, I ain't coming back. We moved here the first time straight from Denmark in '90. And that's when I really started studying yoga in earnest. My primary teacher is Terry Brown at Triad Yoga Institute. I have done my 200-hour, my 500-hour, and also my 800-hour yoga therapeutics trainings with him. I also grabbed a little master's degree in teaching English as a second language, which I thought was apt, because whether you teach English or yoga, it's a foreign language. And so it's all come together into yoga. Life is yoga, yoga is life. And so I have a couple of later arrivals. Let me pass a little handout to you. Let's see, one more. Let's see here. Who else needs one? That's right. Hello, how are you?
Merci.
And
Oh, I got two.
you got two. Steve and Nancy. And so again, there won't be a test, I promise, but some of the things that I will be talking about, you may want to go back and visit with it. So the topic, eloquently suggested by Kayla again, I can talk for days, weeks, years probably about yoga. It's a huge topic. It's kind of gobbed together though, and saying I like yoga, it's a little bit like saying I like food. And food is good for you. But if all you eat are Hershey bars, it's food,
No,
but I don't know you need a little bit more variety than Hershey bars. And so I thought, how does yoga support wellness? It's a great question. I thought, but first we need to start by defining, first, what is wellness? What does it mean to be well? And that means probably something different for everybody. In the Western physiology, we often talk about the 5 pillars of health. And I like those. I think they're a great starting point, and I think they are feeding very well into the yoga practice. What are the 5 pillars of health? Don't all shout at once. Name one. Movement, thank you. What else? Breathing, yes. And that actually falls in under 2. Both under movement, because we know the diaphragm has to move, but also on our mental wellness and our stress management. We have nutrition, eating, and under nutrition, we add what we talk a lot about in our classes. Hydration. Because it turns out most of us are not adequately hydrated. Hugely important for our health, especially if we're taking medicine that needs to be well metabolized. Keep the heart pressure or the heart rate up, blood pressure up, but we need adequate hydration. The thing about putting on more and more birthday candles on our cakes is the body can get a little sloppy at reporting back what we need. And so we may not notice we're thirsty. So we drink less. So just being aware of it. And yoga, to a great degree, thank you, Nancy, is about awareness. And so we have nutrition, movement, sleep. Sleep is really important. We talked a lot about that in class recently. What happens in good sleep to the brain?
Rest and recovery.
Rest and recovery. It gets a little bath, a rinse out. We feel really great the next day when we have good sleep. And we feel not so great when we don't have good sleep because the brain didn't get the bath. And sleep, does it get easier with age or not?
It's independent.
It needs a little bit more tending to often than tending to our mental and spiritual health. Stress. The big questions of life. And then, of course, social connections. So those are the 5 pillars that are often listed for wellness. BKS Iyengar, Exhibit A, the guy with the big eyebrows. He's a big man in yoga. He's the reason we have International Day of Yoga now. It was instituted the year after he passed. And he is a contemporary teacher. His teachings are a lot like what you see in physical therapy. So he's the one who's responsible for bringing in props to yoga and make it very restorative and therapeutic. He says, I need my quote. Most want the same. We want physical and mental health. We want understanding and wisdom. We want peace and freedom. I agree with that. And to some degree, when we really begin to think about these bigger questions, maybe it's because we're noticing that they didn't come, we thought they were always going to be there, all of these things, and then like, wait a minute, why does my knee hurt? What's wrong with my hip? What's wrong with my back? What's wrong with my memory? Why can't I do this anymore? And so yoga says, suffering. We all want to alleviate suffering. And so from defining wellness, also defining yoga, because again, it tends to be sort of a big umbrella term, but it is many, many things. The yoga practice, and I'm probably going to get out of order because that's my special gift of ADHD. I like to just run a little here, a little there, so that's why I bring copious notes to stay on task. There are many different types of yoga practices. There is the practice that we do here, often referred to as Hatha Yoga, which consists of movement, breathing, and also a nod to both moral guidance called the yamas, and they are listed in your little handout, and inner observances or guidances called niyamas. And these two were put at the top of the beginning of the practice before we even begin to really practice, to keep us safe in the practice. And those may be the main reason that yoga is different from going to the gym, going for a swim, playing mats of tennis, because we are, as practitioners, invited to glean towards the bigger questions in everything that we do. So in addition to Hatha Yoga, there's the Raja Yoga, royal yoga, sometimes called Ashtanga Yoga, not to be confused with Ashtanga Yoga, so that's not confusing. But those are 8 limbs of yoga practice, which really takes us from our outer to our inner self. So if you look at the front of the little handout I gave you, you have that great big sun circle. And that is how the yoga practice looks at us, that we are a conglomeration of a physical body. We are energy. We have a mind body. We have an unconscious body, subconscious body, a wisdom body, and then we have a joy body called Anandamaya. And that's really our birthright, to just be happy. But it seems so hard some days just to be happy, because I got a bum knee, I got a bum heart, I got things to tend to, my energies are low. So all the different practices support each layer of being so that we can be well in whatever that means for us. The other types of yoga, Bhakti Yoga, which is yoga of joyful singing or worship. So you go to church, you are in essence practicing Bhakti Yoga. Chanting Bhakti Yoga, I'll do it for long periods of time, would be considered, again, Scott, you correct me anytime you think I'm off course on deep philosophies. And we have Jnana Yoga, which is the study of the texts, the ancient texts. And then we have Karma Yoga, practice of doing good deeds. And according to one of the seminal yoga texts called the Bhagavad Gita, translated to the Son of God, Karma Yoga is the one that's going to get us to our happiest self the quickest. Is it true? I don't know, because I practice Hatha and Ashtanga Yoga on the path to my wellness. That's the one I was attracted to the most. You would say, from a yoga point of view, that Mother Teresa is practicing Karma Yoga. Whether Beyonce is practicing Bhakti Yoga, I don't know. But none is better than the others. It is whatever path supports our wellness the most. So already here you can see now it's starting to get kind of muddled of what yoga is. In short, yoga is what brings us wellness, ease, a sense of belonging. If you think of Maslow's needs hierarchy, which I'm not saying that he stole from yoga, but it sure aligns well with the chakras, the energy centers of the body. So which came first, Maslow or the yoga philosophy? So when I am well in my physical body, and that is what Iyengar says very particularly, I am well in my mind too. So we start, what some teachers say, at the front door with my body. Because it's also the easiest for us to relate to. We can see it. We can't really see our energy self. Now we can feel it. How are you doing today? Oh, feeling kind of low. Not so good. The mind, it can be sharp, it can be fuzzy, it can be all kinds of interesting things. And again, it starts with the observance of how am I feeling? Page 2. The yamas, the moral observances. The yamas and the niyamas kind of reads like the 10 Commandments. That's what I thought first when I met the practice. But there's a huge distinction between the 10 Commandments and yoga. So in Denmark, you belong to the Danish church unless you say, I don't. It's just that easy. And then you check a little box on your tax return and you pay 1% to the church. So everybody's pretty much raised Christian, Lutheran. And so I'd never really thought much about yoga or other practices. Now, as again, I blow out more and more birthday candles, and you study other belief systems, and you see that most every practice have some version of the 10 Commandments. But again, the difference between what I grew up with, the 10 Commandments, and the yoga yamas and niyamas is the 10 Commandments are from the outside in. Thou shalt not, because if you do, I'll. In yoga, the yamas are there for your own protection. The first one, and I believe it is in the handout, is don't cause pain. Whatever action you are about to take shouldn't hurt yourself, and it shouldn't hurt anybody else. Whether it is 2-legged, 4-legged, 1,000-legged, it should be treated with respect. Now that's a good place to start. I kind of agree with that. The second one, don't lie. Live your truth. So it's not just fibbing. It's more about, am I living my heart's purpose? Am I living the true me? Am I allowing other people to see me? Or am I trying to be somebody I'm not? Am I selling something I'm not? I was when I was an accountant. Oh, I tried heels and nylons and suits, and it never worked at all. So you come to a point where it's like, I can't lie anymore. I need to follow who I am. Don't steal. You say, well, I don't steal. Well, sometimes we steal from ourselves again. Maybe we have a super busy schedule, so we're stealing from our sleep. Maybe we're ruminating on worries. We're stealing our calm minds. There are many ways that we can dip in, but not in the Christian way that I was taught as a child. Does that make sense how I'm saying this? Again, am I living in a way that aligns with ease for me? Because when I am well, then I can be well outward and share and support your wellness. And when you are well, I am weller. And so me tending to me is really selfish by tending to you, because when we are collectively well, everybody is well. So that's really the purpose behind it. The last two of the yamas I really like. The first one, brahmacharya, sometimes translated as celibacy. And that got a lot of people to leave yoga. So they said, well, maybe we'll make it a little less strict and just say, be careful with your resources. Don't fiddle them away. Whether it is money, time, affection. Be mindful. And the twin to this one, equally valid, is don't be miserly. Don't be greedy with your resources. Keep what you need for yourself. Nobody's asked you to go be cold or hungry, but then share. So these are I call them the please and thank yous. And so when we practice yoga, these notions are always at the forefront. Even in the physical practice, am I trying to do too many things? Should I do 3 and not 10 for these repetitions because my body's feeling a little tired today? I don't want to hurt myself. But we are Westerners, and we like to think if a little is good, a lot must be really good. But yoga says no. Be careful. Be careful with your resources. Be mindful. So from the outer to the inner, our second limb of the practice. And this is where a lot of the 5 pillars really are very, very layered in. The first one is cleanliness. And the first time I saw that, I thought, well, I do vacuum. But it's a little bit about more the bigger picture. What do I eat? Am I careful about my diet? Am I careful with my surroundings? Do I tend to my garbage? Do I sort? Do I recycle? You can see how this can feed into every part of life. Do I live mindfully with the resources? What goes into me and what I have to dispose of. The second one's my favorite. Contentment. It is a practice. We know we are wired for discontent. It used to be a survival mechanism. Pay attention to what will hurt you. So practicing gratitude, practicing contentment, turning the eye towards which help, we know, gives us a little bit more dopamine. So the neurotransmitters listen to what we think. I have a lot of say whether I am feeling sunny or not sunny on the inside. I bury myself in the news about the news. Did I mention I'm Danish? There's some discontent there. And if I don't balance that out with contentment, stress, lack of sleep, maybe I'll make some poor food choices. So everything again feeds into everything. Third one is tapas. And I always say, not the Spanish kind. Tapas just means effort, conscious effort for positive change. I used to smoke. And I like that little dopamine hit from the nicotine. But I also knew that it's not so good for me. But any addiction, any habit that's long layered, that may not serve us, it takes effort to break. The joke, not joke, but reality about the gyms in January, everybody shows up at the gyms, I'm gonna exercise now. This year, I'm on it. What do the gyms look like in February, March? The tapas practice wasn't there. I'll stay in bed today, I'm not gonna go walk my dog. It's a lot easier to not go for that walk when you don't have a dog. But when the dog is there, we're going. We're going. So she's part of my tapas practice. And then we have the 2 more also here. Self-study. Who am I? Why am I here and where am I going? What's my purpose? So in yoga it's called dharma. What's my purpose? Because it has to be more than finding the best price on gasoline. There has to be more to my existence of the little things, I call them. Now, I like the little things, but why am I here and where am I going? Where am I going? Dharma and karma, they rhyme nicely. Dharma supports my path. Karma is, I look at it as at Newton's 3rd law. The golden rule. Whatever you want back to you, give it out there. And so the last 3 of the niyamas is what constitutes yoga in practice. That is the yoga practice. It is effort. We gotta show up. We gotta engage with ourselves and the practice. We have to stay continuously curious about who we are. Because it's kind of a moving target, isn't it? The person you were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I feel like I'm an auctioneer. 50 years ago. Is it the same you are today? Have you changed? I hope you have. So staying in touch with who you are, being engaged, being involved, and not, well, that's how I do it. Well, I used to smoke, did I mention? But that's not how I do it anymore. So every action we have is a choice that can either promote wellness or not for ourselves and our tribe. Does that make sense how I'm putting this? So, now we get to the good stuff. Because yoga does have a lot of benefits. So the practical, the third limb of the practice is the asana, or asana, some people say. That just means postures or movement. And in, this is, I call it the dude in pink. So this is the Yoga Sutras, the Yoga Verses. And you can see it's well loved. There are many translations. I like this one, it's succinct. And he says, Patanjali, we don't know if it was one guy or a conglomeration of people, yoga is a comfortable and steady practice. So if I am finding myself not being comfortable, I'm no longer practicing yoga. It's no longer sukhasana, which is comfortable pose, it's dukkhasana. Dukkha means suffering. I don't have to suffer. And my teacher, was through Terry's teacher. So Terry studied with Adil Bakiwala. He is a yoga teacher on the West Coast, and Adil was a student of the guy with the big eyebrows. So your lineage, because if you practice with me, this is the lineage that, the teachings that are passed down. And Adil said once, suffering is optional, and I went, He said, pain is inevitable, but whether we keep thrashing the pain, that's the suffering. We have control over that. I'm still chewing on that one. I like it when my teachers give me invitations to think and to go, I don't know. Let me think about that one. Yoga asks us to be critical. It's not dogma, because each one of ours are going to have a uniquely different experience of what it means to be alive and me. And I can't begin to guess what it feels like to be you. But the teaching are for all of us. So when I teach from the philosophy, not from the Zan's yoga, because I don't want to blur it with me. When I started practicing over 30 years ago, there wasn't a lot of literature on yoga. There wasn't a lot of research. It was absolutely woo-woo, because you couldn't quantify it, you couldn't measure it, but it was out there. And now it has been studied extensively, continues to be studied, and it is good for a lot of things. Tapping your feet. So you might notice I took my shoes off. I don't really wear shoes unless I'm outside. And so you don't need to take your shoes off, but I invite you to think about how every day, how much time does your feet spend in shoes? And when your feet are in shoes, they don't move well. And if your feet don't move well, your toes don't move well, your ankles can't move well. It is the river of movement. You can't take one part out and expect everything else to function perfectly. So as we're sitting here, I invite you to, if you want, just tap your heels. We do this a lot in class. We're going to tap the heels. Maybe shake the hands a little bit. Shake it out. I talk a lot about yoga snacks. And I joke about how when you walk into the hub or the living room, it's like, yeah, you'll see a bunch of people just sitting like this. And I've yet to hear someone, yep, everybody was sitting there like they were at a football game. No. So shake it out a little bit. So what does this do? Tap the heels. It's pausing. Let's notice. Gaze inward. Was it awful? Do we move less or more with birthday candles? A lot less. So the brain forgets it has a body. So when we tap the heels, when we walk, when we shake, we wake up the nervous system. So it's from command central to the body. It needs to be reminded continuously it's there. The brain forgets. The little homunculus, the little man in the brain, where we in the motor cortex, is continuously redrawn. And the body parts that are not used, they fiddle on out. So in yoga, in the asana practice, it's basically simply about waking up everything from toes to nose, telling the brain, I'm here, roll call, so that when I go to use it, it's ready for me to be used. And not like, oh, I took a 20-year break from soccer, got on the field, tied up my shoes, and my body says, what are we doing? I have no memory of this. And that's what happens. You may have noticed it. If you've had an injury, maybe you had a limb in a cast. It comes off, or after surgery, you have to start using it. Some of you were very, very patient with me last year after my shoulder surgery. It took a while to get everything put back together again because my brain forgot it had a right shoulder. So from the body, when we wake the body up, now I can get into the energy layer. My breathing. How I breathe affects my nervous system. My nervous system affects how I breathe. So I had 2 doors in. So as we said, I'm going to be quiet here. Not easy for me, but I will. As you breathe. Feel the breath moving in. And feel the breath moving out. The body is pretty good at breathing itself, which is nice. We don't have to remind it every breath. But one of the benefits of yoga is it supports our posture. And we did this in class this week. If you want to join me here in our thinking posture, and just notice how that changes the breath. And then as I upright, how's my breath? The little things that are so sneaky. But then when we begin to think about it, we begin to think, oh, I gotta sit up. Because here, my mental state tends to get a little droopy too. We refer to this as a depressed state in yoga. Alert state. Does our body shape matter in how we feel? Again, did I mention yoga is not dogma? It's for each one of us to think about. But if I've been feeling really blue for a while, how's my breathing here? It's very small, it's fast. So I'm telling my body I am in distress. Could I get a little cortisol? How about a little adrenaline? Oh, now I'm worried. Now I can't sleep and I'm not digesting. Ooh, all right. I feel better. My nervous system goes to homeostasis again. Might take a little while if I've been here for a couple of years or a decade, but slowly and surely we add an intervention, something is going to change. So it's slow, it's deliberate. So yoga supports balance. It supports homeostasis, meaning blood pressure, circadian rhythms. So my sleep, I'm going to pull out my sheet here. Feel free to share. Can you all still hear me? Better balance. And this one is really interesting to me. Improving baroreflex sensitivity. What is the baroreflex? It is a little dude in the neck that helps monitor blood pressure. So when I stand up, I get dizzy. My heart is not pumping fast enough to get blood up to my brain. I may faint. So baroreflex sensitivity, it gets sluggish with age. So there are practices that we invoke for that in yoga. It enhances flexibility, no surprise. Supports healthier heart rate variability. We talk a lot about that in class. What is related to heart rate variability? The one thing that we can do to support heart rate variability, which is about a 5-5 in-breath and out-breath. The heart rate variability is my heart's ability to speed up a little bit on the in-breath and slow down on the out-breath. When I breathe in using my diaphragm, my lungs are stretched down, my heart's go follow the walk. The heart travels something like, you may have to Google check this one, because it sounded crazy, almost half a mile a day. Traveling down, traveling back up. Traveling down, traveling back up, because every time we take a breath. How many times does your heart beat in 24 hours? You know this one.
100,000, give or take.
100,000 times, give or take. Do we want to keep the heart healthy? I mean, could you even keep up counting that in 24 hours? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would get lost, but the heart just keeps on going. I want to do everything I can to keep my heart healthy. Where's my heart happier, here or here? So I want to make sure that the trunk literally is roomy enough for the equipment that I keep in there. Because our trunks kind of shrinks in, don't they? So the flexibility, it's not about bulging biceps or a ripped midsection. It's about having the equipment to support the function of all of the inner equipment. And that's why all of these things make so much sense for me. Healthy heart rate, yeah, we breathe better, we move better, the heart is happier. Improved kidney function. We have lessened, oh no, we don't care about that then. Oh, sorry, it was lessened or buffered menopausal symptoms. I thought it said the earlier. Relieving pain. And these are all research backed. Pain begets pain. Chronic pain is a real, the longer we suffer pain, the more, about 3 months from acute pain, because that's a nice little thing. You bump your knee, oh, there was a piece of furniture there, so I don't keep bumping into things. But after 3 months, and there is no outside cause for the pain, or inside, I should add, now it's just that the brain has gotten so good at pain, it'll just keep telling us, you're hurt, you're hurt, you're hurt, you're hurt. But there is no stimulus necessarily. Turns out the yoga is really good for that. We have movement practices, and the breathing practices are powerful. We can't outrun pain. I'm sure you're well aware of the pain medicine conundrum from the OxyContin and the Vicodin epidemics. We cannot, again, outrun it. We have to change how the brain works in relationship to the pain. Improving quality of life, reducing sleep disturbances, it increases strengths, reduces stress. So, as you can hear, these are both physical but also emotional.
Metaphysical.
So, I'm sorry?
Metaphysical.
Yes, all of the above, because we are everything. Thank you. And then a special section. So when I went into the great Google, I could have used AI, but I'm getting a little, weary of AI because I feel like there's a whole city that goes dark every time I go into AI. So I just stuck with good old Google, and there was only something like 32,000 results on my search of benefits of yoga. So you can spend a little bit of time in there. The benefits for the elderly, which I am now a proud member: lower blood pressure, reduced respiration rate. So some of these are all gonna sound the same. Strengthened cardiopulmonary fitness, enhanced body flexibility. So why does flexibility matter so much?
Many reasons.
Yes. Not very flexible. Nothing is moving. As opposed to everything is just a gander. What about my balance? If I'm not flexible, what if I fall? I'm not flexible. Yes, that's exactly right. The tighter you are, the more likely you are to suffer a more serious result of a fall. If you're very flexible, you just kind of bounce.
So,
Is the hope. But if I'm already here and I go down, all of these inner rivers is what yoga calls them. Because we are just a bunch of tubes running this way and that way. When we are really tight and rigid, these rivers are squished, not functioning well, whether it's the nervous system, cardiovascular system, respiratory system, any system you mentioned, it's a river. And I wanted to make sure these rivers flow really well. Reduced or increased joint motion, that is definitely under flexibility. Reduced depressive states. And they also have done more and more studies now on cognition and how many of the yoga practice supports cognition. And for me, I second what also your teacher by extension, me, Baxter Bell, says, the physician who wrote Yoga for Healthy Aging, that I really want my health span to match my lifespan. Because if my lifespan is a lot longer than my health span, I'm not gonna enjoy that last bit. So yoga turns out really good at supporting that. A lot of things that I'm not doing anymore, that I mentioned smoking, because I want my health span to match my lifespan. I also don't play soccer because it turned out I had forgotten how. But I did start, and I've shared that with many of you, karate a couple of years ago, just because I thought, what could possibly go wrong? Karate is a lot of memory. You have memorized sequences, and it is repetition, repetition, repetition. So whether it's karate or learning dance moves or a new musical instrument, it is for the brain. And so in yoga, we use a lot of these memorizations of sequences too. But when you practice yoga for 30 plus years, I feel like I can origami pose in 1,000 different ways. So I needed something that was so far outside my realm that my brain had to do something that it wasn't used to doing. And so that's one of the benefits. Learn a new thing that will benefit all of these layers of being. Well, that's all I'm gonna say. That's just half the talk. What are you thinking? Yes, Michael.
So, I believe that the entire purpose of life is to be happy. And this is a pathway
Yeah.
to facilitate that.
Yeah, that is the whole, I mean, you say that's the purpose of yoga. That for our unhappiness, a lot of it is our mind circulating about. And the mind, so in yoga says there are exactly 5 causes that causes us to be unhappy. And again, when I first was invited to ponder that, I thought, really, just 5? There seems to be a lot more reasons that I'm unhappy. So I think one of the reasons that I was attracted to psychology initially is I am a pretty neurotic, anxious, tightly wound individual. And and so I would self-medicate. Nicotine was one of them. Excessively exercise, study, anything you could do to access, I was there. It wasn't working well for me. But I noticed when I started practicing yoga, I was just happier. I felt better. The ruminations. And so it got me back. I didn't really like the yoga initially, but I knew I liked how I felt when I did it. And so that's the purpose. It's not, you're not going to get belts in yoga like you do in karate. Oh, well, you're a green belt. The practice keeps giving, and it grows with us as we practice this. Because what we are deepening a relationship with is ourselves, and we come to see where we are bearing these causes of suffering. The first cause of suffering is ignorance. We don't know what we don't know. And it bangs right into the second cause, the ego, because the ego thinks it knows everything. And so now I'm already in a fight with myself. Then we have attachment aversion. I want more of what brings me pleasure, and I don't want what doesn't feed my dopamine receptors. And the last one is fear. We are terrified because we all know we're heading in the same direction, and we hope it ain't gonna hurt too much. And the yoga says, so there it is, no secrets. And so that gives us, again, some concrete things to really engage with. And I don't have to medicate myself or anesthetize myself, because it's right there. And these are the same questions in yoga that people have grappled with for thousands of years. So mankind, our mind, our lives, I mean, we may have all kinds of gadgets and measurements, but we are still dealing with a lot of the same things. It's fascinating, isn't it? But yes, you're here to live a good life without causing pain for yourself or anybody else.
You can't.
Without causing pain.
But that doesn't live, they can't,
Mutually exclusive.
they can't live together. Causing pain for someone else is going to
Hurt you.
hurt you.
Exactly.
You may not even realize
But it will come back and bite you. Newton's third law. So that's why, anybody saw, this is an old movie, Toy Story, the first one. With Woody, the little cowboy. And the bully has him, grabbed him, and he's gonna rip his head off. And Woody spins his little toy head around. He says, play nice. That's what yoga says. You might as well play nice because you're gonna be better for it. You're gonna feel better inside and out. So yeah, we nailed it. I could have made this talk a lot shorter, Michael. I just say you have to be happy.
Thanks for coming.
Any other questions? Yes.
This is really embarrassing because I think I need to ask you to just back up because we missed the first 2 minutes. And how does this relate to your Buddhism background? And tie that, if that's not repeating too much.
No, I mean, and there are no dumb questions ever. So, Buddhism and yoga are both Eastern philosophies, and you could make a strong case for they are both came out of the same spring. Buddhism traditionally doesn't have a movement practice like yoga does. The teachings are very, very similar, but they were, for me, a little stark. Because the short tenements of yoga is life is hard. Get over it. And I'm like, no, yoga is a little prettier. It has a little bit more fluff to sort of, and it goes very succinctly into different aspects, but very, very similar to Buddhism in many, many ways.
Yes.
But the physical practice that most people think of as yoga is just one part of it. The bigger part of yoga is learning to dial the eye inward, as you see from the circle of the front. It's my energy, it's my thoughts, it's my awareness. How am I living in relationship to everybody else? Am I supporting your wellness so you can support mine? Yes.
Buddhism is aligned with physical practices.
Yeah, there are some, because I practice with Susan.
Yeah.
But I don't, so again, my ignorance, the first cause of suffering is that the practices that I have been afforded through Buddhism when because I practiced Buddhism too for a long period of time, because curious about it and how it stands with yoga, and again, very similar. But the physical practices, I don't think had the same marketing department as yoga did. So a lot of the yoga practices that we have today they are new. So that's, not old ancient practices. A lot of them came out of Danish gymnastics around the turn of the last century. So you can go in and Google that and you can see all kinds of yoga poses and triangles and wide-legged and forward fold. So that's one of the reasons it was very familiar to me when I started yoga. It's like, oh, I know these. So similar but different.
Asian Buddhism is allied with Qigong.
Yeah, exactly.
So it has a very deep relationship to the physical body.
Yeah, and I agree with that, because Qigong, Tai Chi, each have their own lineages, their own practices, and I think all of them are different but similar. And the purpose of all of them are the same, to foster wellness. Is that fair to say? And so whatever we have studied, whatever we have been afforded, like me, yoga is what I've studied most in depth, and the others are, I've studied Qigong, I've studied Tai Chi, but not to the level of my yoga practice. And so, but I don't see big differences other than yoga is more acrobatic. Handstands and flips and so, but I think that is also all the newer practices where the youngins today are drawn to, so it has changed because of that. And I'm not a huge fan necessarily, but that's just where that's going. That's what I meant by saying the marketing department. Yoga sells billions of merchandise every year, from being a fringe thing just a few decades ago. $1 billion industry, and that's a little scary because that changes the product, and it waters it down so it becomes just the practice, and we lose all these other elements. So that's really why I love to talk about yoga. It says, wait a minute, there's more. There is so much more. But the practices, great place to start. It's the front door to our being in many ways. Thank you. Anybody else? Questions? And did that answer your question, Mike? Ish?
Yeah.
I think it's like a heart song. You find something, you go, you know what? That aligns with my core. And that's what yoga was for me. It had the physical aspect that I needed, because, and one of the reasons why yoga is so beneficial now, is being used as called bottom-up therapies for PTSD, trauma survivors, because a lot of trauma is lodged in bodies without language. So when we move, we can dislodge trauma. And trauma, it can be things that we don't think of as trauma. I was thrown from a horse, but it lodges in my body, that response. So when we move, the issues that are in our tissues can be released. Shaking, tapping, standing, moving, breathing, all of it, yes.
For me, it's the biggest thing is the ability to shut this chatter off.
The chatterbox, yes. Which brings me right, and Steve, I'll get right back to you too. The second verse in the 196 verses on how to be happy, the dude in pink, he says, yoga is the quieting of the mind chatter. Because when the mind chatter stops, we can see who we are, glorious, happy beings. but it is those veils of suffering. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I can't believe she did that. Yada, 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 yada. That causes suffering. Steve, you wanted to say?
How did you find the regular discipline to do yoga? How did you?
Why do I brush my teeth every day? Why do I eat every day? It's sort of the same thing. It makes me feel not good if I don't. But my regular practice, it may not look the way you think it does. And I get asked a lot, how much do you practice? And I will say from the moment I open my eyes to the moment I close them and go to sleep at night. But it doesn't mean that I am, what do you do? But it means I'm mindful about what I'm doing. When I wake up in the morning, it's like, oh, I'm awake. I'm just gonna lay here and breathe and sort of check, get my body and my mind talking to each other. And then I may do some ankle circles, wrist circles, I'll wiggle around a little bit. We talk a lot about these sequences in class that you can do before you get out of bed. If you're feeling a little stuck when you wake up, start moving. Get the equipment moving before you need to use it. And then I'll get up and I'll say to Molly, gotta go potty? And so we have a little cryotherapy as we get out right now, because it's nippy out there at 6 o'clock in the morning. But it is everything I do, most of it I should say, because I'm human, is mired in mindfulness. How I engage with anybody, what I choose to answer. Somebody comes at me not having a good day, am I gonna let my amygdala let them have it and let them give a piece of? No, because where's that gonna take me? So that's a practice, mindfulness. So these inner practices, what am I eating? That's a yoga practice. Am I hydrating enough? That's a yoga practice. Am I practicing contentment? Do I have some habits that maybe I should let go of? That's a practice. Practice that makes me not feel good. Who am I? Because if I just look to other people to tell me who I am, that's a bumpy ride. You're nice? No, you're not nice. Well, which one is it? I know who I am. I appreciate your input, because sometimes a mirror needs a little polishing. Maybe I need to offer an apology. It didn't come out the way I wanted it to come out. The last one of the inner practice is humility. You can't take Greenland. I've offered to teach yoga to the White House. I said, no, we're good. I'm like, okay. But so it's not, yes, we think of discipline, but I mean, and I made light of it, but why do you brush your teeth? It makes you feel better. Why do you eat healthy? It makes you feel better. Pardon me? And yoga, but it takes a while for that routine. According to one of my teachers, for any routine to layer in, it's somewhere between 18 and 254 repetitions. They studied these things. So I hope this was helpful. So this was pure and view of yoga and my experience and my background. And as ones of you who take the classes, you know, it's an ongoing dialogue of wellness. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? How can we support health span and lifespan to match up?
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Tell your daughter you did a good job of talking about it without doing it.
Thank you, yes.
I'll put this on again, what Scott was alluding to. I asked my daughter, I said, I'm asked to do a presentation. She said, but don't do a pitch. I'm like, no pitch? Well, what's the difference between a presentation and a pitch? So Scott says it was a good presentation, not a pitch.
Thank you.